We're rolling.
Welcome to the REI Rookies Podcast.
The Real Estate Investing Rookies Podcast, episode number 11, where we invite you to follow us on our journey towards financial freedom using the power of real estate. I'm Josh Koth.
And I'm Jack Haas.
All right, and here at REI Rookies, we believe in a couple key principles. Number one, the best way for us to retain information is by teaching it to others. And number two, a rising tide lifts all boats. We're not competitors, we're a community. All right, let's get into some real estate investing. So this week, we're going to keep with our mindset shift series here and really work on that mindset and what happens when you take the red pill. And we're going to make sure our minds are in shape to be proper real estate investors. So we're going to focus on some things that you may hear from friends, family, and acquaintances when you're talking about real estate investing, and some of those common objections and how we've handled those, how you don't fall into the trap of that kind of thinking in your own brain, which is that's the main thing, because you're not going to change people's minds typically, and you may not want to even. But the main important point is to not fall into these traps yourself. And as long as you're cruising forward, keep pointing your compass to true north and just being persistent, you're going to have a lot more chance of success. So let's go through some of these real estate investing myths.
Well, the one that I hear the most is, do you really want to get up at 2 a.m. to unclog a toilet?
Isn't real estate risky?
Oh, we've tried that. It doesn't work.
I don't have the money to buy a rental property.
Finding good tenants is impossible.
The tenants will destroy the property.
I'm not handy enough to own a rental property.
Yeah, so there's kind of a list of some objections we hear when we talk about real estate investing. And not wanting to get caught up in the trap of thinking like that, you kind of have to have some objections in your brain kind of at the ready, or ways to handle those objections, I should say. So let's start with the first one. Do you really want to unclog the toilet at 2 a.m.? Now, this is the mythical tenant who calls at 2 a.m. saying their toilet's plugged. I don't know that I'm sure it's actually happened. It's never happened to me. But the good thing is I wouldn't know if that call occurred, because we have a property manager dealing with that and taking those calls. So that's not something as an investor, as an owner, we want to even deal with. So that's a real easy solution. Outsource your property management, right?
Yeah, we say time and time again that we like the concept of owning property. We're not landlords.
Exactly. And that's a very inexpensive thing to outsource to another party, a very unpleasant portion of the job. So we choose to do that, and we work our deals. We figure out the property management fee built into the rents. And if we can't work out a deal that includes that, then we'll just pass and move on to the next deal.
So another objection that we regularly hear is, isn't real estate risky?
Mm-hmm.
And this is usually caused because of the crash that happened not too long ago.
Yeah, and it's funny how that is an excuse for people not wanting to invest in real estate now, like 9 years later. And I always say, well, we're investing for cash flow. So if a crash happens, your value of your property may be reduced, the price. But if you're not selling at that exact point, what does it matter? And in fact, in a period of downturn like that of prices and a tightening up of lending markets, demand for rentals actually increases. So if you're a buy and hold investor profiting off rents from rental real estate, you're actually in an improved position, and demand for your properties may be actually increased. So I would say in a crash type situation, a market downturn, the exact opposite would be true. Would be actually the least risky thing you could do would be to buy and hold real estate.
We always look at appreciation as an additional benefit, like the icing on the cake, if you will. We don't hang our hat on that. It's all about the cash flow.
Exactly. All right. The next, also, here's another point on, isn't real estate risky? Well, where is your money now? What are you investing in now? And how risky is that relative to real estate? I would make the case that real estate is one of the safest investments on earth. You look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That pyramid, where the base of the pyramid is shelter, right? That's one of the main needs that people have, and it's not going away anytime soon. So I think real estate being a fundamental need like that always will make it in demand, and therefore one of the least risky investments out there.
So another one is we've tried that. It doesn't work.
Yes. Well, I would say maybe you weren't educated enough at the time to make the right decisions and make good deals. If you do real estate investing poorly, you're correct, it won't work, and you could potentially lose money, just like any type of endeavor. And maybe, and I use myself as an example. When I bought my first rental house, 14 years ago, I failed miserably at it, barely got out from under it, and got it sold when I moved, and got out okay, but I definitely didn't make any money. And it probably dissuaded me for a few years, but when I got the bug again, I decided to educate myself properly this time around and really do things right. And the difference is night and day. So I'd say that's just, again, a lack of education on their part.
So and the next one is I don't have the money to buy a rental property.
One thing I always tell people is, do you have assets somewhere that are underperforming that you could convert into a performing asset like rental real estate? Is there a retirement account somewhere? Is there cash somewhere? Do you have access to, money or credit or the ability to scrape together enough for a down payment on a rental property, or to buy one free and clear if that's possible as well? And if you have that money invested somewhere else and you're not happy with the returns, can you improve that return by moving it into real estate? And that's always a great place to start to look for money.
Yeah, one of the best aspects, or the properties that you should look at first, is the one you live in.
Exactly.
A great source of being able to get that first down payment is pulling out a home equity line of credit.
Yep.
And turn that non-performing asset that you're living in into a performing one.
Yep. Another great strategy would be, if you're in an apartment currently and you're looking to move into a house, consider moving into a duplex, in one side, and taking advantage of all the offers and the ability to secure financing for owner-occupied housing, and use that to secure a property that you could turn into an investment eventually. Move into a house with the plan of using that as an investment immediately if it's a duplex, or even eventually if it's a single family house, even if would it make a good rental in the future if you were to move out? Twin homes work good for that. Duplexes, something, a quadruplex even could possibly work. So if you have that in your horizon, you can kind of make that plan and just work it from there, and eventually end up with quite a few properties just from doing that alone.
But remember, finding good tenants is almost impossible.
Well, that's why, again, property managers, that's what they do. That's what they get paid to do. They run advertising. They cast a wide net. And, the goal, if you're priced properly, is to attract enough potential tenants that you can choose from that lot to select ones that will pay on time, have good history, and will leave your property in good condition when they leave. So again, that objection is solved by having a good property manager in place.
But the tenants will destroy the property.
Yes. Well, and that does happen. But it's just, you just have to look at it like a speed bump, right? Yes, there will be a percentage of tenants that will do that. And again, that's something property managers should handle by properly vetting tenants before they place them, to hopefully find people that are not those types of people. But nobody has a crystal ball, and there will be a percentage that will trash a property, and you just have to figure that's a cost of doing business. Pick yourself up, make the repairs, get the property performing again, sell it, extract your profit that way. But just understand that there will be a portion of your tenant base that will not be the greatest, and that's just how it goes. But overall, your return is going to be high enough that you can handle a few speed bumps along the way. And that's better than not doing it.
And just plan for it. Mm-hmm. That's part of why we have capital expenditures part of our numbers.
Yep, between security deposits, capital expenditures, and maintenance costs that you're setting aside as a portion of your collected rents, then when those costs do occur, it's not a surprise. It's something you've planned for, you write a check for it, and you move on.
But I'm not handy enough to own rental property.
Now, this one really hits home because you've seen me paint, and I don't do it well.
I can confirm.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, here's another thing where you find people in your inner circle that are good at those things, and you stick to your strengths, and you have others stick to their strengths, right? So, Jack, you're really good at painting, so you're much, more adept at handling painting needs we have while I'm out looking at other properties, right? So we just kind of work to our strengths or hire it out. If you don't have the ability to do it yourself within your inner circle, find good contractors, good service providers, and hire those things out. And, we have a Rolodex of every possible plumber, electrician, painter, all those types of things at the ready, because it's something you have to be ready to deploy when needed.
I think it's important to note that most of the pushbacks you're going to hear are strictly hearsay. Many of the people that you run into haven't had any direct or firsthand experience when it comes to rental real estate.
Oh, and this is so true, because if someone says, well, what about the, 2 a.m. unclog the toilet call, I would say, you've had that? And they would say, well, no. But it's just almost like an urban myth. They just assume that that's what happens all the time. And I kind of flip it the other way around. And I say, rather than, hearing all the horror stories people have had of tenants, I say, look at the people that that are doing the best, that have accumulated the most wealth. The chances of them having real estate in their portfolio are pretty high. And talk to them. They would say that they found a way to deal with those fears, those potential pitfalls of real estate investing, and still manage to succeed greater than your person with your average 9-to-5 job. So if you come at it from that angle and find the people that are successful and choose to emulate them, that's a much better way of looking at it, I would say. All right, so that's kind of a list of objections you're likely to hear and our responses to them. And remember, the main thing is to not fall into the trap of thinking that negatively yourself, and just trust in your ability to educate yourself and take the proper path down your real estate journey. And that you're going to make some mistakes. There's no denying it, but you'll be able to handle those. You've planned for them, and then you can move forward. So, Jack, talking about dealing with some naysayers, some negative Nellies, you recently had an experience telling some people about it, so why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I think it was more perception than anything else. I have been reluctant to basically tell my family that this is something that we've been doing lately, and now just broke the news this weekend.
Just to question you, are they like under a rock? They don't see you posting all over social media that you're real estate investing? They obviously are not savvy tech types?
Well, I'd say that. I do suspect that a couple people would have guessed that I was up to something, but it did get back to my mom and dad.
Now, here's an interesting point, right? You're feeling like you're going to have to reveal this like it's some big, deep, dark secret that you're trying to improve your family's financial health, right? Why is that something that you're approaching like it's a big, negative, dark secret? Good. Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, I think it's mostly because you still look up to your mom and dad, and you just don't want any kind of negative response. It's like you kind of go back to that childhood where you're always seeking that approval.
Now, do you just assume that they would react negatively, or if you just, what gave you that perception that they would react negatively?
Well, I've had other business situations in the past that haven't gone well.
Okay. Fair enough. So you thought they might be a little bit judgmental?
Yeah. So So, but in the end, it was the block again between my own ears.
Right.
Because when I did tell them this weekend, it was more nods all around. It wasn't anything negative associated with it.
Do you think they were just keeping it to themselves, or that they were actually fine with it and thought it was a good idea?
I think they were fine with it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, and like I said, in the end, it was my own personal mental block that was preventing me.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about it in the past about how I've been forcefully making sure that I've been telling everybody that this is something I'm doing.
Right.
And I think it's really important to tell people what you're doing.
Just as a networking strategy, it's great because I can't tell you the number of people, and I've been doing the same thing. I've been telling everyone, hey, I'm a real estate investor. It's almost you don't want to be annoying about it, but I definitely bring it up when it seems appropriate, because you never know who may have something in common with you. And I actually just had it happen here at my other business, which is a photography studio. I had a client come in to collect a check that I'd run an ad in his magazine, and turns out he is a property manager and president of the local apartment association. I mean, what are the odds of that? And if I would have never brought that up, we probably would never found that out about each other. So that was another great contact that I made just through mentioning that I do real estate investing. So I think it is important to kind of shout it from the rooftops, tell everyone that it's something you're involved in, because you never know who could be a possible lead on a property, or an investor, or someone to sell to. Or, it could just help you out in some way, or you can help them out in some way and provide value to them as well.
So the things that I've been trying to get my brain around lately is the social media. And
right.
One of them is, Facebook, I haven't had a problem. Twitter, I haven't had a problem. It's that LinkedIn, that business profile of how to now merge these two, or make the addition of real estate without it overwhelming or looking like it's taking away from my day job.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Definitely something I'm not an expert in either. It is tough to have multiple, career paths on LinkedIn. I wonder if you almost have to have two profiles, one dedicated to each pursuit, or if you can kind of combine them. That's something we should probably explore. And when we find out, we'll bring the results here to the podcast and talk about how we changed our LinkedIn profiles, because that's something I need to do as well.
Yeah,
Mine is all photography related. It doesn't have anything about real estate investing in it either. So that's something we definitely need to update if we want to network with other business people, right?
Right. And I have a rather large business network that I'd like to leverage in this regard.
Yep.
I'm just trying to find a subtle way of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe it doesn't have to be subtle.
Yeah, that might be the case.
All right, so that's kind of covers some of the common real estate investing objections you'll hear when you bring up the topic, and how we've handled them. And maybe the important thing to remember is just don't fall into those traps of thinking that way. And if you're confident in your ability and what you're doing, then just forge ahead, right?
Yep, you don't want to stop 2 feet from the gold.
Exactly, to throw back to Think and Grow Rich there.
Moving on to our real estate investing specific lesson of the week. Josh, I understand you have a good one from a trip down to Florida.
Yeah, my lesson of the week is to always be analyzing. So I learned this kind of from my photography business. When I was studying light, one thing I would do is whenever I walked into a room, I would always analyze the light in the room and decide if I was going to shoot a portrait session in here, how would I handle the light in here? And I've really carried that over into real estate investing. And every time I come across a property or an investment opportunity comes across my desk, I analyze it. I run the numbers, right? What does it rent for? What would it sell for? What are similar properties selling for? How much rehab does it look like it needs? What exit strategy would work well for this property? And it's something, if you do it over and over again, that repetition really increases your accuracy, and you get so much better at it, and you're so much quicker at analyzing the numbers. So an example of how I did that was my family and I took a trip down to Florida, and we had a vacation condo rental for a week. And just so happens there's a real estate office about a half a block away, and they specialize in these vacation condo rentals as investments, right? Because a lot of people, they buy one, they rent it out for, 50 weeks of the year, and they go spend 2 weeks a year in it. And it's kind of a good way to share the burden of those costs. So I thought, well, let's go analyze one of these vacation condo rentals and see if it would be a good investment opportunity. So I met with an agent, got examples of some of the different finishes and locations and pricing for those, and how all the fees work with the condo association. Obviously, property management is more intensive because people are moving in and out of it's almost like a hotel. They're moving in and out every few days or weeks at the most. So that it's higher percentage of the income goes towards management, obviously, which is understandable. So I ran all the numbers, and really, it sounded good at first because they said, well, this property brings in $30,000 a year, $32,000 a year. But when you realize the property management fee, I think, is like 25%, and they had some HOA fees because it's a condo type situation. So those fees just kept eating away at the profits, and when it was all said and done, it was barely profitable, and definitely not what I would call a good investment. So, and that's neither here nor there. I wasn't really seriously considering buying one. Well, unless it turned out to be a great investment, then I would. But the lesson there is to always be analyzing and just take the steps to run the numbers and see. So when you come across a property, you're just going to be that much better at it, and you can make more educated decisions for your own investments.
So this week at the Coach's Corner, it's personal development tip or book or quote. We're going to talk about the book, Getting the Money, The Simple System for Getting Private Money for Your Real Estate Deals by Susan Lassiter-Lyons. Great book, simplified and kind of in a nutshell. It provides a simple framework to raise private capital for real estate, for 3 types of private investors and how to approach each of them. One of the things that I want to point out here is it's also really good tips when dealing with a bank. So not necessarily just those private investors, and how to close deals and make the process fun and profitable.
Yeah, that's a great book. We took her course as well as read the book. A lot of great information. And one thing you'll realize as you move down your journey in real estate is if you get really good at it, you're going to be finding deals faster than you can possibly buy them. So you're going to need to raise some additional capital. And private money is one of those methods of doing that. So this book, Getting the Money, The Simple System for Getting Private Money for Your Real Estate Deals, is a great teaching device and learning how to do that.
So, wrapping things up, please provide us some feedback. How's the audio quality? Would you like us to focus on a specific topic? Provide the feedback directly on Facebook or Twitter at REI Rookies.
Yes, and if you like what you're hearing, please head over to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps other rookie investors out there find us and find this, hopefully, valuable information.
And remember, get off the bench.
And get into the game. We'll see you next time.
So that wraps this part up. That was terrible. So in the middle region here where we live, Central America, you didn't really experience the crash like those coasts. What are you laughing at now, you son of a...
Central America. Central America.